Welcome back to JM Football Week 10 Power Rankings. You know the drill. I am Justin Penik. This is Dalton Philly. There are two things that I want to say at the top. One, we were without Dalton Philly last week. I did the rankings. I hated doing the rankings by myself and not having any collaboration because now I feel like there are some big movers. There are some big losers from this week in the NFL from Week 9's action. There are some big movers that are much bigger movers because I was too much of a chicken to move teams last week, even though they needed to be moved. I'm glad Dalton Philly is back. And also, a little caveat, we are recording this on Monday, November 6th, pre-Monday Night Football, Chargers versus the Jets. So these power rankings for Week 10, not reflective of Monday Night Football just yet. Dalton Philly, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be back. Kind of sucks that my Snakes lost in the World Series, but it was a great trip. I had very much had a lot of fun. Just wish they won the World Series. Some ride, man. Some ride.
Well, your Snakes lost the World Series, and my quarterback tore his ACL. So we had a great weekend.
Welcome to Week 10.
Welcome to Week 10. And we'll start off with Caleb Williams-ville like we always do. The Carolina Panthers 32. Frank Reich did not win the revenge game. The Arizona Cardinals 31. The New York Football Giants are at 30. Bobby Skinner is throwing the T word around. Tank. Chicago Bears are at 29. The New England Patriots are at 28. I don't think we have any comments on these teams. They're there. They're waiting for April.
Everyone lost in that pool, too. It's not like they had a good week.
Sucks.
The T word I thought you were talking about was toxic, because that's a big word in our office. Yeah. That's the one I thought of right away, which is kind of funny.
That word doesn't really exist in my vocabulary. The thank you next tier.
Shout out Ariana Grande.
I paused because of that.
Thank you.
The Oakland Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders at 27. Hey, Antonio Pierce, first NFL win as a head coach, kicked the crap out of the Giants.
Sorry.
The Commanders are at 26. The Broncos are at 25. The Green Bay Packers, they had a nice little win at 24. They had a nice win. And the Tennessee Titans are at 23.
I mean, Will Levis looks good for Tennessee. I know they lost Thursday night, so that's a good note for them. I think they should probably stick with him. I mean, Tannehill's going to be out for a while anyway with the ankle injury, but Levis surprisingly has looked decent when he's played so far, so that's a good note. Shout out to Antonio Pierce getting his first win. Again, sorry about your Giants in that game, but that's crazy that for some reason since 2010, interim head coaches have done really good since week 1. I think the funny note is that last year, my Colts fire Frank Reich, hire Jeff Saturday. Yeah. This was week 10, week 10 of 2022. They beat the Raiders in Las Vegas for his first win as a head coach. Week 9, 2023, if you fast forward, Vegas fires Josh McDaniels. Antonio Pierce, he gets his first win in Las Vegas as a head coach. Crazy.
I'm a big believer in the first game with the interim head coach. Pick that team to cover. Because I think we're playing for ourselves. We're playing for our guys. We're playing for the new head coach. Let's go rally around the troops. I think all the stereotypical stuff that fans like to think about every single game, I think that's it's never more true than the first game of an interim head coach. So, You know what? Antonio Pierce, Super Bowl champion for my Giants. Patrick Graham, good former defensive coordinator for my Giants. A lot of revenge happening in that game. So good for the Las Vegas Raiders. They're still in it. You know what's crazy? They're a bad team. They're a really bad team. Jimmy G was benched, right? Not just hurt.
Aiden O'Connell. Yeah, he's benched. Bench/hurt, mostly benched.
They have 3 wins. 3-5. 4. 4-5.
They're there. They're one game out.
But they're a bad team. They're a bad team.
They're not good.
Yeah, we'll see. Antonio Pierce, take us to the promised man. Prove us wrong. Take us to the promised man. Prove us wrong. Let's move up. Let's talk about some teams here. We have the Atlanta Falcons at 22. We have the Indianapolis Colts at 21. We have the Tampa Bay Bucks at 20. The Minnesota Vikings, Josh Dobbs at 19. The Los Angeles Rams at 18. And the New Orleans Saints at 17. That's the mid-man tier. There's one team that's taking a big fall.
Justin, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant.
Please.
The Falcons lost to the Vikings 31-28 Sunday, right? They lost to a team that acquired Josh Dobbs 5 days ago. Do you know how unprecedented you have a quarterback play with a new organization 5 days after you acquire him? The most recent guy to do it was Josh Dobbs again. I think it was last year or 2 years ago when he was with the Tennessee Titans. And he was fighting.
He didn't even start.
And he had to come in just kind of like an emergency situation like this. This is one of the most embarrassing losses I like that you could possibly fathom. It's that bad. There's videos of Josh Dobbs on the sideline going through his cadence and working on snaps with Garrett Bradbury and the entire offensive line, so they know when he's under center and in shotgun, like what he's going to sound like, so we don't get any false starts. O'Connell basically said too that he was translating play calls and like going through each play during the huddle before the play clock hit 15 and the communication stops. He's talking all of that situation with Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs had never thrown a pass to a Vikings receiver until in-game situation. And they won! They won! The Falcons, a team that had a chance to go 5-4 and be tied in for first in the NFC South, lost to a team that just acquired Josh Dobbs 5 days ago. They were playing against Jaren Hall, and I mean, listen, first game for the rookie, I get it as a starter, I get it. He gets hurt. Josh Dobbs comes in, leads them to the promised land. Falcons were controlling this game, and they just lost it. They were up 22-10. They're up late in the game multiple times, and they somehow lose. It's amazing, Justin.
Yeah, what it boils down to me for the Falcons, I know the offense scored 28 points. Defense even forced a safety in this game. There were 4 field goals in the first half. 4 field goals in the first half. And really, the Minnesota Vikings weren't doing anything offensively. They couldn't put any points up on the board, even when Josh Dobbs was early kind of coming into this game. And it looked like the Falcons were going to control the game, but it just so happens when you're not, like, first of all, I don't even know if like a team like the Kansas City Chiefs or, with the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't even know if they're kicking 4 field goals in a game when they cross the 50-yard line. They're scoring touchdowns. Mm-hmm. But when you have an average team like the Falcons and you start kicking field goals and you're not converting those opportunities into touchdowns, you just kind of know, I feel like as a fan of that team that's known to maybe blow some leads, you just know, like, damn, something's coming. Something's coming. And that's what happens when average to bad teams do not convert their opportunities, field goals into touchdowns. And it's happened so much, Dalton, even at the end of the game. They have an opportunity to put the game away. They do it offensively. They go up 28-24, but then their defense can't put the game away. Against the Commanders a couple weeks ago, which that loss makes me more pissed off than this one. Honestly, even though it's Josh Dobbs, like, that loss made me even more pissed off because I'm watching that game and it's like, all right, the Falcons have an opportunity to score here and win the game or tie it. They have an opportunity to win or tie. They just couldn't do anything. So they're a really frustrating team, and I feel like we talk about them so much, whether it's football today or whether it's this power ranking show. We talk about them so much because they are a fun team.
They should be a surprisingly good team.
And they're a fun team that's in a bad division, and they're an interesting team, and they're not fun. No, they're an interesting team. They could be fun, but man, are they just really, really inconsistent. And their inconsistency at this point is costing them football games, and it's costing them a shot at possibly making the playoffs in what is a weaker NFC and definitely a weak NFC South.
My last note, and this is for all the fantasy football players out there, Art Smith, I get you hate fantasy football. I get that you have some passion against it. He's being a little smug about it. He's being too much in the press conference. Like, don't even address it at that point, right? If you want to win football games, give the ball to your best player, right? You drafted a running back 8 overall, Bijan Robinson. You've drafted a playmaker 3 straight years in a row in the top 8 in the NFL draft. But comparing Tyler Algier, I know he's a 1,000-yard rusher last year compared to Bijan Robinson this year. Algier has 13 more carries and almost 150 yards less than Bijan Robinson. Algier's averaging 3.2 yards per carry. Bijan's averaging 5 yards per carry. Give the ball to the better playmaker. I don't get it. Don't be smug about fantasy football. You want to win NFL games, let's give it to the best player.
Yeah. Even Jonnu Smith is a fine tight end too. He's athletic. He's done some good things, but still, like, Kyle Pitts is sitting
at
right.
Least Jonnu is producing to a similar level.
Jonnu is producing. Bijan out of bed.
He fumbled yesterday. I get it.
He fumbled on Sunday, and it's one of those things of you'll get NFL coaches that are really stubborn. That if you even make one mistake, like a fumble, where like you can get into the doghouse of a coach, and I think that's sometimes a little silly. But I will let's give a shout out to the Minnesota Vikings. They're at 19. They're at 19. They move up. Bobby and I were on this show last week saying, all right, well, the Vikings, they continue to move up. It's a shame they lost Kirk Cousins because odds are they're going to move down. Now, I think they actually made the trade for Josh Dobbs right as soon as this Power Rankings episode went up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so maybe that would have changed. I don't know how much that would have changed like my overall perception on the Vikings, but I think Kevin O'Connell's a good coach. And that's what I honestly think it comes down to. Like Arthur Smith, I think inevitably, like I think it could work, but I think his ego and I think doing it his way or the highway may get him eventually canned in Atlanta. And versus I think Kevin O'Connell has evolved to everything that's put in front of him. And, you talk about two offensive coaches. O'Connell's the better offensive coach with the better system and clearly is communicating things better to his players, in his second year. So shout out to him. I mean, the fact that you had to say the way that they were transcribing and communicating the plays, it's awesome stuff.
And what's crazy, too, is that not only Kirk Cousins out, Justin Jefferson, arguably the best wide receiver in football, is also on the IR right now.
Best players in football, yeah.
The Vikings right now are 5-4. They're the 7th seed in the NFC. So right now they're in the playoffs.
And they had a terrible start.
At this current picture, and they had a terrible start. I think what the most important thing about this game was that the Falcons are 4-5 now. If it comes down to a potential tiebreaker, Minnesota winning this head-to-head matchup, that's massive. Yeah. And it's a huge impact in this.
Let's move to the playoffs. Why not tier? We have the Houston Texans at 16. The Jets are at 15. Remember, this is pre-Monday Night Football. The Steelers are at 14. Chargers are at 13. The Browns are at 12. The Seahawks are at 11. C.J. Stroud had a historic weekend.
Just fantastic. I mean, rookie record for 470 yards in this game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was one of the best performances I have seen out of a quarterback this year, not rookie, just in general. What if 46 seconds to go, Bucs score a touchdown, K. from Baker Mayfield. You think the Bucs have this? And CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, they say, no, thank you. Let's drive down the field, score a game-winning touchdown with basically 5 seconds to go in Houston. I cannot believe that, I can't believe that the Bucs lost this game. If the Falcons didn't lose to Minnesota, I would have probably done around Tampa Bay somehow losing this game to Houston. 46 seconds to go. You're a defensive team. You create pressure. You're playing a rookie quarterback. How do you not prevent them from scoring a touchdown? But that said, luckily the Falcons lost to, that situation. But long story short, CJ Stroud, 5 touchdowns. Noah Brown, 153 yards. Dalton Schultz, 130 yards. Tank Dell, 114 yards. Each of them finding the end zone at least once. CJ Stroud looks so poised for being a rookie. His biggest problem in Ohio State when watching him, in my opinion, was his play under pressure. Yeah. And man, when they were pressuring him, he was hitting shot after shot. And they in the second half, I think they only blitzed him like 3 or 4 times.
Yes, and that was a stat that Todd Bowles is known for, we're gonna come at you, we're gonna blitz. First half, I think CJ Stroud is maybe it's either somewhere between 7 to 10 or 9 for 10 when Todd Bowles is blitzing. I think he was blitzed maybe 3 times in the second half.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So, I mean, this is actually something that, I don't know if this is a short, I don't know if this is a video. There's enough stats out there to maybe make a video like this. There's a do not blitz list in the NFL of quarterbacks. Do not blitz this quarterback. Do not blitz this quarterback. Is CJ Stroud joining the do not blitz quarterback territory? Find out next. So, awesome stuff by CJ Stroud. I think I also saw somebody from PFF tweet this out, and I kind of want to have this bigger picture conversation about CJ Stroud. RG3's rookie season was jaw-dropping, whoa, look at what this guy could do. And that's when read option was being kind of introduced to the NFL, even though it was been in college for a very long time. Look at the stuff that RG3 could do. And, they're bringing the stuff that he did in college into the NFL. Cam Newton, bringing the stuff that he did in college and his ability to run the ball and how much of a weapon he is in the red zone. And he did throw for a lot of yards his rookie year too, right? I'm trying to think of rookie quarterback performances over the last, decade, maybe a little bit plus. But what I feel like a lot of them have in common is they're able to do something jaw-dropping, wow, look at what this quarterback could do. Look at the skill set that he has.
Sure.
CJ Stroud is just playing the quarterback position awesome without doing anything specifically jaw-dropping with his legs or pocket manipulation. All of it is just good. It's just all of it just so good and so balanced. And I think this is where, the guy, I think he works for PFF, brought up Andrew Luck, that this has to be one of the best, purest quarterback rookie seasons since Andrew Luck.
And he's been more efficient as a Colts fan. He's been more efficient in terms of taking away that turnover-worthy plays than Andrew Luck was in his 2012 rookie season.
You can bring up Dak Prescott in 2016, but look at that team. Look at that team versus this Houston Texans team.
Right.
Look at the injuries that this offensive line sustained to the early part of the season. And even with the Houston Texans offensive line all healthy, nothing compares to the Dallas Cowboys offensive lines of the mid-20 teens.
No.
Nothing compares to that defense. No. This is a team that traded away its first-round pick this year, and they're like, all right, well, we want to actually kind of maybe go for it because this is the quarterback that we want, and we want to win some games this year, and they're doing it. And it's because of that C.J. Stroud is the best player on their team. It's not the Browns defense carrying the highest paid player in the National Football League, Deshaun Watson.
Wow.
It's not.
You're right.
It's C.J. Stroud is carrying the Houston Texans.
And I mean, our defense has been solid, but they're like mid in terms of like statistically speaking, like 18th in yards
Yeah, they're
per
not.
game.
My point is that they're not being.
Game.
C.J. Stroud isn't being carried by anyone.
No,
it's not even. And this is not a shot at like Tua. Tyreek Hill, MVP, deserves it more than Tua, and we talked about that on our all JM team.
Right.
C.J. Stroud isn't being carried by anybody. He's carrying this Houston Texans team because of the good quarterback play that you see.
Quick shout out for the Texans before we move on. Dare Ogunbowale, running back, kicks a field goal. Game is 30-30, 8 minutes to go. Keami Fairburn is out with an injury. Dare comes in, kicks a field goal, gives the Texans a lead. That was so relaxed. It was like a 30-yard field goal. So relaxed, so poised. It was a great moment. Give credit to him because that also kept the Texans at the time. They gave them the lead 33-30. So shout out Dare.
Yeah. I want to mention the Seahawks in this playoffs why not tier. I think they fall. They were in the top 10.
Yeah. So the Seahawks last week that you had them at 10. They drop a spot to 11. We were debating between the Seahawks and Browns whether we keep Seattle 11 or 12. And we agreed that we think Cleveland's a better team. And especially Seattle's got issues right now. But with Seattle beating them recently, we wanted to keep Seattle in front of Cleveland. But Justin Penik, I have a fun little game. It's called Guess the Quarterback.
Yeah.
So I have two quarterback stats, okay? I'm going to read them to you. I'll read A and B, and you have to tell me who they are, all right? So since week 3, this quarterback has a 62.9 completion percentage, 6 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, 2 fumbles lost, 15 sacks, 80.1 rating, okay? That's quarterback 1. Quarterback 2, since week 3, 63 completion percentage, 6 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, the same. 2 fumbles lost, same. 10 sacks, 5 sacks less, 76.5 rating. Can you tell me the 2 quarterbacks?
Well, we're talking about Geno Smith.
We are talking about Geno Smith.
So one of them is Geno Smith.
Geno Smith is A.
I'm going to say like Josh Dobbs is the second.
You know what's funny? I almost did Josh Dobbs, but I didn't. Second quarterback is Mac Jones.
Oh.
So Geno Smith, Pete Carroll said after the game, like he is concerned about the turnovers with Geno Smith.
Yeah, dude. It looks like he was with his previous teams.
Right. We're talking about the quarterback of Mac Jones, the quarterback of the worst team in the AFC right now by record, in the New England Patriots. Mac Jones, we have him at a low bar because he's not playing well at all. Yeah. Geno Smith, since week 3, has not played well at all. And that's right now, at this point, holding the Seahawks back. Their defense had been pretty good against the run until they faced the Baltimore Ravens rushing attack. Yeah. Their offense has...
Which is frustrating because they go out, they trade for Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
And
you know him well. Bobby knows him well. We talked about it on Football Today.
They were more efficient on the ground on an EPA per play. And this is really tough to do. You don't see this a ton. They were more efficient on the ground on an EPA per play basis, running the ball than throwing the ball. The Baltimore Ravens were.
Yeah.
Really disappointing.
Seahawks, Geno Smith's got to bounce back. From this game, that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, he's got. I'm disappointed because the Seahawks, I thought that they could be one of those teams that, hey, maybe they could be a sneaky NFC team. They have the Commanders and the Rams coming up the next 2 weeks. Those are 2 teams that they should take care of. But 49ers, Cowboys, 49ers, Seahawks, 4 games after that. So they have a tough stretch of football coming up in November and then the early part of December as well. So we'll see what those Seahawks can do. Playoffs, you better be there. We have the Jaguars at 10. The Dolphins are the big fallers at 9. 9. Now, it's worth noting, I put the Dolphins at 2 last week.
We had them, and we had them 4 the week before. So,
which, granted, I think you maybe would have talked me out of putting the Dolphins at 2 last week, to be fair. So, I mean, them dropping 7. But we're going to talk about them. We have the Detroit Lions at 8. We have the Dallas Cowboys at 7. We have the Bills at 6.
Bills also out of Lombardi Land, too.
Bills out. So, yeah, first time this year that the Bills are, or no, maybe not the first time this year.
But they're out again.
They're out again. They're out again. It's been since the early part of the season at the Bills. Bills were out of Lombardi Land. Now they're out. They're out again.
I'm going to be very quick with Miami Dolphins. I had been a big fan of the Dolphins. I had praise. At one point, I said, I think they're going to be the best team at football at some point.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened yet. I said this on Football Today with Bobby Skinner. Go check that out if you haven't. But the discrepancy between the Dolphins when they win and games that they win versus games that they lose is just eye-popping and miraculously bad. They've put in their wins, they've won 6 games, all against teams with losing records. Those teams combined for an 11-27 record, a 289 winning percentage. Horrendous. They averaged 39 points per game and almost 500 yards per game. Amazing. That's fantastic. If you're living there, like, that's elite of the elite. In losses, they're facing teams all through with winning records, combined 19-6, 760 winning percentage. They average 17 points per game and almost 310 yards per game. Yards aren't bad, but 17 points per game in the NFL will not do it. And especially when you have a coach like Mike McDaniel, and you have guys like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, quarterback like Tua. You're playing winning teams. You have to win against these really good teams. This was the 9th straight time the Dolphins have lost against a team with a winning record. That is a red flag. If you want to be considered amongst the top of the NFL, you got to beat the teams amongst the top of the NFL. And so, Dolphins coming up, I have one phrase I have left to say. It's put up or shut up. I'll raise them back up if you play well. You got an easier schedule coming up the next few weeks. You keep losing, you keep falling. I would like to see you guys be on the top again towards the Lombardi Land, but this week was a red flag for me, being shut out in the first half.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they scored 14 points in the third quarter. Those were all the points that were scored. Those were all the points that were scored in the second half of that game. I think the overseas games are strange. Like
they're never normal.
Never normal.
Nope.
It's either a huge scoring output or it's very little. Like I don't really love to get like a full read of teams from these overseas games, because also you have the whole element of
the travel.
You know, you have travel, and then teams are getting there at different times.
Yes.
And I think the Chiefs actually took a pretty big swing. I think they got there like a couple days before the game.
Oh wow! Usually that it's not good for teams,
right? Which that was like a big storyline, and the Chiefs wound up scoring 21 points in the first half, and that was enough. Here's what I'll just say this quick about the Dolphins as well. Talking about them being the greatest show on turf, we've had that. We've had those comparisons earlier in the year. You want to know what the greatest show on turf had? They had 2 wide receivers. They had Isaac Bruce, and Torrey Holt. Where's Jalen Waddle?
Yeah, he's been banged up this year, but great
back injury. He missed the Denver game week 3 earlier in the year. He went out. I think one of the first 2 plays of the game went out of this game with the knee injury, but came back. That's what I think is the X factor of this Dolphins offense. They're running the ball very well. They got back into this game because they were running the ball.
Yeah, they countered with the inside run game rather than the outside tackles, taking down the sideline.
I thought that they were going to come back and tie the game, because I'm like, oh, they're running the ball.
Wasn't for the Chiefs' defense forcing that fumble.
Yeah,
Ryan Cook returning for a touchdown.
It was a bad sack. I think they had a penalty late in the fourth quarter as well. So the Dolphins were very close to tying this game. And then maybe even if this game goes to overtime, or obviously if the Dolphins come back and win that game, or if they convert on that final game-winning drive, then this is a completely different conversation. Yes. So I don't want to act like the Dolphins are extremely, extremely far away. Obviously, the splits between bad teams and when they play teams that are above 500, obviously that's a concern.
Yes.
I think Tua missed a really bad throw late in the game where a guy was wide open. I think Tua he could have some of the best throws that you see, and utilizing the weapons of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and utilizing the run game. But I also think Tua can have some really head scratching moments and being like, "What the fuck, man?" Like, those plays are the differences between being a good team and a great team, and that's what the Dolphins are kind of flirting with right now. Jalen Waddle, like that's what this team needs. Tyreek Hill showed up. Played well, had an 80% catch rate, 8 catches, 10 targets. Tyreek Hill, they got the ball, and you had still, the Chiefs did a good job limiting him to 62 yards, but I feel like you need that second element of Jalen Waddle should not be that far behind Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle I view as an alpha number 1 receiver, and he's not playing it like it this year. And if it's because of the health, then that will impact the Miami Dolphins, and they will not go as far as people think that they will, and what their hopes are as well. You want to move to Lombardi Land?
Oh, everybody's favorite land, Lombardi Land. We got a new top 5. Take it away, Mr. Justin.
We have 2 new teams joining Lombardi Land. Number 5, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, the hottest team in the NFL over the last month.
Maybe Jacksonville will argue with you.
Oh,
I have to. We get ripped by Jaguars. Oh, we won 5 in a row. You're good, but relax.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's it.
No, they did lose to the Chiefs, right?
Who, Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Beat a good team. The 49ers are at 4. The Ravens are at 3. The Chiefs are at 2. The Eagles are at 1. We're right. We were right about the Bengals. It was the one team that we were like,
we're not dropping
you know
them.
what? We're not dropping them. The stats are really bad. The efficiency is like bottom of the barrel bad. Just had a feeling that it was going to come back. And they came back. Mm-hmm. And good for them. And good for them, good for us.
We talked about it. They started very similar in 2022 when Burrow had the appendectomy. I said it like, sometimes you got to just get reps. Burrow needed reps. Yeah. He had the calf injury. He wasn't able to move. And we're finally seeing with his ability to move that their offense is clicking again. I'm happy to see it because this AFC North race is going to be wild between Baltimore, who's 7-2, and then you got Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh, all 5-3. So, Justin, my big question to you is 4 of our top 14 teams in this power rankings are in the AFC North. Yeah. All 4 teams in the AFC North are right now projected to be in the playoffs. So my question to you is, of these teams, who makes or does not make the playoffs?
Well, I think the top 3, everyone's like top 3 favorite teams in the AFC North are going to make it. And it's the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Browns. And I think the Steelers find a way they'll be close, but I think they'll find a way to get out.
Okay. I think that's very fair. I mean, we still have concerns about that offense.
Yeah.
Or Pickens was like, he went missing during Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't do much. Deontay Johnson scores his first touchdown since 2021, which is kind of cool. But I mean, to me, what I said to Bobby Skinner was Ravens and Bengals. I think those are the top 2 teams. Bengals are hot again. Ravens are arguably the best team in the AFC right now. Steelers and Browns are very similar, both really good defenses, where the Browns is better. Browns are like the number 2 defense in football, and the Steelers are a top defense for sure. But it's questions on the offense, right?
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson, Kenny Pickett, are either one of these guys going to take charge and lead their offenses to having more success? Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, yes, ground game is important. They lost Nick Chubb. Not really needle changers right now. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren should be better than they have been so far. They had a decent game on Thursday night versus Tennessee. They haven't been needle changers. Which one of these offenses is going to take the step up to potentially make the playoffs out of the AFC North?
It's the Browns.
Yeah.
It's the Browns because the Browns have already, they've been through adversity on the offensive side of the football. And while the Steelers, their adversity is just so self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. So self-inflicted. So I think it's easy. I think it's easy. I mean, the Browns also, their defense just puts them on a whole nother tier as well. Versus the Steelers, it's like Steelers defense, they're good, but they're not like top 5. You know, people just think because of TJ Watt and because there's names on that defense, they're not like a top unit in the National Football League.
They're a good unit.
They're a good unit.
I would say, if I had to rank them, they're probably in my top 10 to 12.
What defense is better, the Bengals defense or the Steelers defense?
I would take the Steelers, but they've caused a lot of turnovers to Bengals. Like Jermaine Pratt's having a quiet good season. Cameron Britt-Taylor, I believe, has 3 picks in the last 4 games. So that Bengals, Logan Wilson, I think, has 3 interceptions this year. Trey Hendrickson has over 8 sacks again. This Bengals defense is good too. If I had to pick, I think I'd still lean Steelers, but listen, I would be excited to see them go head to head and find that out, you know?
Well, they're gonna because they're in the division. Lucky us.
Crazy how that works.
Wow. Man, anything else that we want to touch on? Those Ravens, I will say, I picked them to win the Super Bowl last year, so that kind of like broke my heart a little bit just seeing that the way the season went. Lamar got hurt.
Right.
I'm I like the Ravens are a team that I've liked for years. I've liked Lamar Jackson for years. And why I'm hesitant on the Baltimore Ravens is because I'm waiting for that game that I know that they can look good, but I'm waiting for that game for them to play like an average team, and then they just don't show up. Now, here's the funny thing.
Oh, no.
We talked about it last week with Bobby Skinner. They don't have another average team or bad team on their schedule. It's either an in-division game, which I guess you could say the Steelers are a bad team, but they're not. They're winning games and whatever. They're a tough team. Even though the Steelers are a bad team, they're a tough team to play. How about that?
Sure.
Come at me if you're a Steelers fan. You're a bad team. I'm sorry. I'm waiting for that game, but that game is not on the schedule for the Ravens. So it's either they're gonna continue to kick ass, and they're gonna take names, and it's gonna be against good teams, and it's gonna be like, whoa, shit, look at what the Ravens are doing, or they get their ass kicked, and it's like, all right, well, it's a little bit of a humble. But even if they lose a close game against a good team, it's like, all right, well, you lose to a good team. It's like, all right.
Being 7-2 is really important right now.
Yep.
The two games I would say out of division that are going to be interesting in terms of like, I don't want to say they're lighter, but they're like games you should probably win. You play both LA teams back-to-back weeks, Chargers and Rams. Those are two you got to have. If we're talking about the tough division games, you also play the Jaguars, Niners, and Dolphins 3 straight weeks, which is a crazy streak. So you got to beat those LA teams. And Baltimore being 7-2, even if they finish the year, let's see, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, math guy, 8 games. If they go 500, they're 11-6 and a playoff team.
Yeah.
So
last year they had a very different path. I think last year they had a very tough start to the schedule. Maybe. But I remember talking about how they had a very easy finish to the year. And
they started cold.
They could have. They started cold. They lost the game to the Giants.
3-3.
Lost the game to the Giants early last year. So I remember being like, well, they have such an easy finish to the schedule. They can not only win the North, but they could be a top 2 seeded team in the AFC. Lamar gets hurt, and it just changes the whole trajectory of the year. Lamar Jackson, stay healthy. Please. Stay healthy.
Unless All-Pro Tyler Huntley. Don't forget it.
Stay healthy, Lamar. Stay healthy. Chiefs continue to do what they're doing. Steve Spagnuolo and that defense is, they're playing great, and the Eagles are inevitable. Eagles are inevitable. Even when like Jalen Hurts doesn't put up like statistically have like the best game, and AJ Brown for the first time since Vietnam doesn't have 125 receiving yards in the game.
They find ways to win.
Do you see that tush push that they did on their own 1 yard line and it got like 5 yards on a first down?
Get them out of their own end zone, And that was after the Shoemaker catch, right? That he was short of the end zone. Crazy.
Yeah, Joe Judge got a boner after watching that. All right, that's going to do it. That's your Power Rankings Week 10. Had to throw Joe Judge in there at the end. Maybe I should try and throw Joe Judge at the end of every single power.
No.
Comment. Here's how I know if you're watching till the end. Comment Joe Judge.
Wow.
There you go. Like, comment, subscribe, comment Joe Judge. We'll see you next week. Until then, I love football.